There's a medical intake form in hospital archive in Minas Gerais, Brazil. Patient registry number 00437. Date January 20th, 1996. Every field is filled in except one. The line for presenting condition is blank. The paramedic who filled out every other line on that form says she left it blank on purpose. What do you write down when what's in front of you doesn't have a name? Her name in this retelling is Renata Cordeiro. For 17 years, she worked emergency transport out of Varginha, a quiet farming city most of Brazil had never heard of before that January. She kept a private notebook, not a diary exactly, more a habit paramedics develop to process a shift that won't leave them. Most pages are routine, but one entry, dated January 21st, 1996, runs longer than the rest. At the bottom, in different ink, like she came back to it later, I didn't tell them everything. The call came in just before midnight, logged as an animal bite near a wooded lot on the edge of town. That's the official language. Renata says what was waiting by the ambulance wasn't animal control's problem. Crouched, she says, not lying down, folded the way an injured person curls up, not the way an animal does. Skin the color of wet clay. Eyes open and tracking her, though everything else about it said it shouldn't have been conscious at all. 2 municipal officers were already there. Neither would come within 10 meters. She found a pulse, faster than a human's, but steady, the one detail she wrote down twice, like she needed to convince herself the second time. They loaded it into the ambulance, 11 minutes to Humanitas. For all 11, its hand found her wrist and stayed there, not gripping, she says, resting, like it was monitoring her pulse the same way she was monitoring it. 2 men in plain clothes were waiting at the entrance before the doors opened. Not staff, not police. They took the patient through a different corridor. She was asked politely to write the call up as a false alarm. No patients were transported. I want to stop here because I have to be honest with you. There is no surviving official record of a registry 00437 naming what Renata says she treated that night. The hospital's own statements, then and since, call the January 1996 events isolated and unrelated to any other reports circulating in Varginha that week. There's no independent file to check her notebook against, just a private recollection filtered through 30 years. I'm not asking you to take this as proven. I'm asking why so many people independently described strikingly similar things across the same 3 days in the same small city. Because Renata's account doesn't stand alone. That same week, municipal firefighters were sent to the same wooded lot for what their own report called an unidentified animal. Residents described something matching her account near a wall hours before her call. And in the wider lore that's grown up around Varginha since January, one soldier connected to the case is said to have died of a rapid, unexplained infection weeks later, a detail retold so often it's now inseparable from the story, verified or not. Renata's notebook never names him, but she once told a researcher she recognized his photo. She wouldn't say from where. Here's what it cost her. Renata transferred out of emergency response 18 months later to a quiet administrative post she was, by her own account, overqualified for. The notebook entries after January get shorter, more clinical, like she was consciously writing less.
She never married. Asked once if the two things were connected, she said only that it's hard to let someone close when part of you is still standing in that corridor, watching two men in plain clothes carry away something you're fairly sure was still afraid. In 2019, a retired hospital administrator, elderly, unwell, past worrying about consequences, told a local journalist that Hospital Humanitas received a confidential transfer directive the week of January 20th, 1996, ordering certain admission records sealed rather than archived normally. He didn't say what the records contained, only that he'd signed the authorization himself and had wondered every year since whether Registry 00437 was one of them. He died 4 months after that interview. The recording has never been published, only a summary of what was said. Renata Cordeiro is in her 60s now, still lives near Varginha, still, by every account, refuses to go on camera. What she's given over the years is fragments, never the whole story, from one source, all at once. Maybe that's the most honest part of this case, not the creature, not the sealed records, but 30 years later, the person closest to it still can't decide how much of it she's allowed to believe in herself. If you want to be here when the next fragment surfaces, and pieces like this have a way of surfacing, that's what subscribing does. It just means you're already in the room the next time someone decides to talk. What do you write down when what's in front of you doesn't have a name?